It's great to be here, and I miss working together. It's good to see you again.
So we were talking before the show got started on how how much AI is in the conversation and in the news. It feels like the last 9 months everything's changed, but it was 9 months ago where everything kind of lit up and AI got on everyone's radar, even though
Hmm.
we've been doing it for 20, 25 years. Those of us have been working in the field, but it really lit up. What happened 9 months ago?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, AI has been around since the 50s. The government's been leveraging it behind the scenes for many years, and really, in the past 12 plus months, it's really surfaced to you and I, people that didn't have access to, this chat GPT and these large language models where you can ask questions and get an instant response that's really specific and exactly what you're looking for without having to reach out to any human being.
I can't recall a technology getting 100 million users in 8 weeks.
I can't either. I mean, it's amazing how fast this is moving. And you asked me 9 months ago about technology that came out. There's a new company, an AI company coming out every day, and it is better than the company before. So and they're adding new functionality and just really capitalizing on what OpenAI and companies like that have surfaced. So it's just we're moving really fast.
It feels like, because you and I have been around tech for our whole careers, and it feels like the velocity and the momentum that this particular wave has seems to be, gosh, I'm thinking of one of those giant waves off of the coast of Portugal that the surfers go to.
Oh,
it, it
Nazare,
it's
Nazare.
that big, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and before, usually companies were leveraging it internally for their software offerings, like these SaaS companies, and now we're seeing it more at being used by employees, and that's the magic that I'm seeing. Is it's not something you have to purchase anymore. It's free, or it's almost like your personal helper. And I look at adaptive AI in the workplace specifically. It's like a super smart helper that watches how people do their jobs and then learns how to help them do their jobs even better. And that is beneficial to me and my fellow employees.
I think the way we've framed it around here is, I call ChatGPT Stella, and I talk to her as if
So,
she's the smartest one in the room and is going to help me get my job done. And so I have personalized her to that degree and say, these are all the things I need to. How would you talk to someone who was really helping you? And the quality of the responses seem to reflect, they're better when you work that way. Do you have that experience?
yeah, and Stella is a great new name. You should patent that for your LLM. But I'm interesting when I use ChatGPT, but I also have Claude with CLAUDE, which is phenomenal, Perplexity, and then Bard, and there's so many other these LLMs, and they're all not perfect. Like, you still get hallucinations where you can ask a question and then it gives you the wrong answer, and I literally go through each one to make sure that I get the right answer, and I think as great as AI is and how it's changing, how you function, there's still issues around questions you ask. But you know, uh, my daughter just went to college, and I'm teaching her how to do it, and not in a way where it's allowing her to cheat. It's like, hey, I need to solve this problem. I don't want the answer. Can you help me find better content around this topic? Or can you create flashcards around this topic, and ask these specific prompts and saying, hey, I am a college student. I need to work on this assignment. And that's where I think it's magical. It's like, you can use it to cheat if you really want to, but you can also really use it to learn. And that's where I see, me being in ed tech and building learning management systems for decades. I think that's where the opportunity is really going to rise and really help students learn at their own pace, leveraging these LLMs.
So one of the things you study is the ethics of the use of AI, and I was just reading yesterday where there was a book that came out, and ChatGPT was listed as a co-author, and one of the things I wonder is when we read that, do we do we trust what we're going to read more or less? Do we diminish the human that was involved more or less? I mean, these are all still questions that we're debating. Do you have a point of view on that?
Yeah, of course. If ChatGPT is one of the co-authors, great, but there's still a responsibility for the human author to go back and really analyze what's written to make sure that it is true. I mean, there's a lot of ethical practices that you need to implement, whether you're from your personal standpoint or your business side. I mean, you need to use it carefully and responsibly, because whatever you type into these LLMs, it's listening and learning from you. It's just like the new self-driving cars that are, I'm in San Francisco, there's hundreds of them on the street. You need to test those on every second of the day, because sometimes they crash. You need to evaluate why they crash, and then you need to fix it, and there's an iteration process for that, and you need to do the same thing in your business, whether you're implementing a chat bot or some other AI productivity tool that's going to help you function or summarize your emails. You need to test that before you just release it out into the wild and potentially leak information or make you say something that you shouldn't have said.
So that kind of leads to the other thing that you talk about, which is data privacy. So if I take let's take a business plan, for instance, work with a client, we write a business plan, and I dropped it in the business plan so it can give me an executive summary, a perfect application, right? Perfect application. Take these 70 pages and give me a page and a half executive summary. Perfect. Now it has my business plan, right? And what's happening with all that data?
Yeah, this is where it gets dangerous. So in my companies, we turn ChatGPT and Claude, and I know you can get access to Bard off in terms of being able to upload documents. I mean, I'm happy with you asking questions and things like that, but there's a zero policy on uploading any confidential information or information that's owned by the company. And I think this is a best practice within any company you work for or with. They should have an AI ethics team structured within the company, and they should review what is appropriate and what is not appropriate to use within the workplace. Because you could have a sales document that has customer information in it that somebody uploads into ChatGPT or Claude and says, hey, can you find any mistakes in this document? And it's like, oh, pricing for this is there. Now it's public information. And ChatGPT could maybe use that somewhere else. So you really do want to, take these systems that are more closed, and ChatGPT just implemented ChatGPT Enterprise, where it is, this large language model.
So you have an instance of it?
You have an instance of it. It's crawling only your database and your files within your company, and it's not allowing that information to go outside of that kind of firewall. And that's where I think it's ethical to use within your company using offerings like that ChatGPT just rolled out a few months back.
Has this rapid adoption caught, in general, IT departments a little flat-footed?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, you've got CEOs that are using it, and just like, oh, great, summarize this email, like they're doing 1,000 things a day,
Right.
late, and then all of a sudden when they realize that certain information is being put into these public LLMs, it caught us all off guard, where it's like, oh gosh, this is such a great tool, but then, if you use it in the wrong way, it could come back to bite you. So, you know, from an ethical standpoint and just best practices, that's why you really do need to have that ethics committee. You need to go through a full analysis of the product before you actually roll it out, and train your staff. You also need to educate your staff on what's right and what's wrong.
It feels like there isn't a place to go for best practices that isn't trying to get your $39 out of you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, ChatGPT has a full document list on best practices, or OpenAI, and I'd suggest you go there and
Oh,
look at
good.
what they have. Yeah, it's really detailed, and they're looking out for you. I do believe that, and they understand the impact that it can make if it's used in a wrong way. But they do offer that.
Give us an example of an experience you had where you used chat, which kind of adaptive AI, which any of the four that kind of changed a business strategy or had a dramatic impact on a customer
Hmm.
experience.
Yeah, gosh, I was the chief product officer at ISA Online. They're the biggest certification company for health, wellness, and personal training, yoga instruction to personal training to health coaches, et cetera. We have thousands of students, online daily. It's a self-paced model. And I was hired to basically replace their legacy technology that was fairly dated from the 90s with modern tech. And one of those was implementing AI. And at the time, I managed the customer support team and student success team. This is about 40 people. They would be online 6 to 6 p.m. They would answer tickets because everything was submitted through an email system, and then they would go and respond, and sometimes have to contact individuals. And what we found is the NPS score, Net Promoter Score, was dropping. The time to respond was taking longer because the business was doing well. We had more students coming in, and we decided to put in this conversational chatbot, and by doing so, we crawled 2 to 3 years worth of data of what questions were asked, what answers we provided, and before we just threw it out there, we cleaned up the answers to make sure they're appropriate. And then if we didn't have an answer, we would then push it back to that ticket system. What we found is that 60% of the questions were fairly repetitive, and they could be answered conversational AI chatbot. And the outcome was NPS scores went up. Response rate assess team, because they weren't focused on, your account's locked. You owe this amount of money. What we did was we built that into the chatbot, where it would basically say, hey, I'm locked out of my account. What can I do? Oh, let me go check for that. The chatbot would go into the CRM. It would find that your account was locked, that you owe $199.99, and send you a link. You'd pay it, and then boom, you're back in business within seconds versus in some cases 72 hours. So that's where I feel AI is really impacting how we do business and really improving the experience for our customers.
When you hear someone who has a dystopian view of the future of AI, and because you're bathing in it, and there's a lot of that. I mean, there's the back and forth. What's kind of the first thing you say to that kind of person when you see that conversation coming?
Yeah, I mean, in the use case I just identified with the customer success and student success team, I mean, they said, oh my gosh, this is doing our job for us, and my response to them is like, yeah, it's helping you do your job. Like really, I don't want you to spend all day just unlocking locked accounts. I want you to actually, talk to a student and say, oh, how can I help you, you know, complete this assignment, or validate, or provide additional content to whatever you're trying to solve. So in a way, like, that's a great example where we're taking the time that they would have spent on doing kind of just basic stuff to really helping students achieve. And that's a learning example. I mean, the other stuff that I like, and I talked a bit about this with you, is make.com is really introducing these productivity tools for individuals, where they're summarizing news articles, but I use it for email. For example, it'll summarize my emails, and I get 100 emails a day. It'll then transfer those to Slack, and then in Slack, it could answer them in my own voice if I want them to. But that's the stuff that's really helping my productivity. So I can go through, find out which ones are important, which ones I need to respond, and then I can respond to them instantly versus going through hundreds of emails within my inbox. So,
Chad, thank you for helping us understand. I mean, I wish we had 4 hours for the show.
yeah, so much information. Thank you, Mark.